In today's video, we will talk about file handling and we will talk about writing data to files. So in the previous video, we learned how to create files, and today we will talk about writing data to files. I'm going to show you the best way of writing data to files, which is also the most convenient way. And before we begin, we need the file writer class. So file writer class is used to write data to files. So you can either import it similar to how you did the file class, but if you are not good at remembering this stuff, you can simply use this star symbol. So what this star symbol is doing, it is basically telling our compiler to import all the files from the IO package. So now we have access to all the files which were part of the IO package. So first I've created the file object which has the name, and it is using the default path since I have not given it any path at all. And let's create an object of the file class. I'm going to call it fout since my data is going outside of the program. And here I'm going to pass the file name, that is, or the file object. So now it is giving us an error. So now let's see. Now it is telling us to handle the exception. So we must handle the exception, otherwise we won't be able to proceed. So I'm not gonna bother with the catch block for now, but you can add your custom code here if any error occurs. So now we have created an fout file object, and notice one thing. What this file object will do, it will check whether this file exists or not. If the file is already present in our computer, if it already exists, it will simply open this file. And but if it doesn't exist, if this file doesn't exist in the default path or the default directory, it will create a new file, completely new file. So you don't have to worry about creating a file if it doesn't exist. Similarly, you can give it a path like this. Now it will save this into the F drive, but for now I'm gonna use this. So also one thing, this takes two arguments. So if you only pass the file name, the other argument will be the false. So what's the other argument? So the other argument is append. So append is the other argument. So as the name states, if you don't pass it anything or you pass it false, it won't append data to file. So if your file already has data, it will delete all that data and it will then start writing data. But if you pass the append to true, then it will keep that data safe and it will start writing data after the data which is already present. So append is helpful if you want to save your previous data, but if you don't care about your previous data, you want it wiped out, you every time you run your program, completely new data will be written. It will still store your data, but it will only store your data. It will not store your previous data. So this is the append part where you tell whether your data will be appended or your all your data will be rewritten. So for now I'm not gonna append, I'm gonna keep it as it is. I'm gonna rewrite the data. Let's write the data by accessing this. So as you can see, it is giving us an error. It is telling us that it is not initialized. It is telling us that actually, as you can see, it is not even recognizing that symbol. It doesn't know what nf out is. So the problem here is that scope of the object. So since we have created an object in this try block, it is only accessible in this try block. So declaration matters. So if I try to access it into the try block, so as you can see, I have all its function available. So the problem is that it is just like declaration issue. So suppose you declare a variable inside a loop, like in for loop. So in that case, that variable is only accessible into that for loop, not anywhere else. It is the exact same scenario. So let's declare our object outside. So now I've declared it, so I don't need to redeclare it. I can simply assign it a value. And let's write our data here, f_write. So here I'm gonna pass the data. So first I have to create a data variable. For now it has 10, so it will write 10 to the file. And notice it is telling us that effort may not have been initialized, right? So this is the first issue. To fix that, remember, if we want to initialize a number, we simply set it to 0 or any value. But if you want to initialize an object, you can simply call it null. So null means it has no reference, since objects store references. So this is the initialization of object. We still have an error. It is telling us to handle the exception, so we can simply add try catch to handle this exception. Oops, I was supposed to add try catch. For now we are only dealing with try catch. We want to look into other stuff. So as you can see, now it is handle it with write data. So file writer writes data character by character, right? So instead of using data, I'm gonna use integer dot to string data. So basically what I'm doing, I'm converting this data into an integer. Sorry, I'm converting this integer into a string. So I'm converting this value into a string, and then I'm writing it to. So the advantage will be that the value will be written as it is in the file. It will help us in accessing and reading. So this is what I'm doing here. And let's so after writing the number, let's enter an empty space. So each number we write will be separated by a space. So I passed a simple space character, and after I've written simply, let's make sure to close your stream and file. So first let's close our effort, that is our file object. So as you can see, it is giving us an error. So we can simply have to close it into the exception. So as you can see here, we are handling multiple exceptions at once. You could have handled them here as well, but I separated this. And or you can handle them all separately if you want. Similarly, let's flush. So basically it is used to flush data to file. It's not compulsory. And then let's close the file as well. uh, Actually we don't need to close the file, since it is not required here. And what more can we do? We can so I think that's all we need to do. And I have to flush before I close. So now I have written this will write data to our program. So let's run it and let's see what happens. And you can obviously handle the exceptions here. So now as you can see, we got nothing. So after that, let's also add that data written successfully. So we know that our data was written. So now let's run our program. So as you can see, it is telling us that data is written. Let's search our file, that is my data. So as you can see, we found the file through search. So as you can see, we got our 10 here, right? Great. So let's add 20 here. You can take the input from the user as well. So now let's run our program. So let's, as you can see, our program has ended. Now our program has terminated. Let's open our file. So let's open it. As you can see, we have our data, but the problem is our previous data is gone. So this is what I'm talking about. If you want to save your previous data as well, simply add true here. Now it will keep a record of our previous data as well. So let's run our program again. So data written successfully, our program ends. Let's open the file now. So now as you can see, it is writing the next data. Let's store 3 4 33 some 33 or 3232 something. So let's run our program again and let's go to our file. So as you can see, all my data is written. So this is what I was trying to show you. And Let's enclose this space into a function for better access, and let's create a function called write data, which basically writes data, and it will take the data argument, which will be the variable that will be written. So now we can simply call the write data function. So let's continuously write random numbers to our file. So let's generate random numbers. So let's create a variable called temp, which will hold our data. Let's initialize it to temp. So now we will keep writing data as long as, let's create a counter variable as well to hold our data, to hold the number of times, to control the number of times this loop is executed, right? So we will execute our loop as long as, or we can use the while loop actually. While counter is less than equal to 10, or we can simply add less than 10 or less than equal to, and now it will write 10 numbers. We already have 3 numbers written in our file. It will write 10 more. So let's let's say I'm gonna call the write data function. I'm gonna convert the temp. I'm gonna simply pass the temp, which will contain my data, and temp will be a randomly generated number. So temp is equal to math dot random times 1000. So it will write numbers from 0 to 999. So I have to cast it to int, convert this into int, uh, since this returns a double value. And let's run our program now. So, oops, I messed up. I didn't add the increment part. So let's create a new file. I'm gonna change the file name, so we create a new file, or what we can do. Let me delete this file real quick. Uh, so I'm gonna be deleting this file. I'm gonna create an entirely new file. So let's run our program now. As you can see, it is printed this multiple times, but that doesn't matter. We can simply exit it, remove it from this and insert it here outside this loop. But let's look at our file. So whoa, so as you can see, we have 10 random numbers written, each one separated by a space. So we achieved our goal. So that's it for today's video. In the next video, we will see how we can read data. You can write any type of data through this logic. And thank you for watching.